What is going on, everybody? Been a diehard Pistons fan since '03 and eager to see this team getting back to playing winning basketball. The Detroit Pistons kick off their season tomorrow, and at the very start of the year, it is always a prime time for overreactions. So in this video, we are going to go through 5 things that could potentially happen at the start of the year that could cause some issues, but I'm doing it as a warning because I don't want you all to overreact. It's a long 82 game season that is upon us, and we will not make or break ourselves within the first couple weeks. I know better than anybody it is easy to overreact at the start of the year. Last year, the Pistons started off 2-1. I was at the home opener against the Chicago Bulls. Cade had 25 and 10. Darren looked like a monster, and I was walking back to my hotel saying, wow, this is a playoff team. We're going to the playoffs this year. Directly after that night, the Pistons did not win another game for like 2.5 calendar months. So it's very easy to get ahead of ourselves early in the year. So I want to go through a couple things that might happen that could seem like trouble, but are probably not the end of the world. The first thing on this list is going to be the schedule start. So in case you guys don't know, the Detroit Pistons have a gauntlet of a schedule to start the year. Their first game is at home against the Pacers, and then they're on the road seeing the Cavaliers, and then back at home for the Celtics, and then on the road for the Heat, the Sixers, and then back home against the Knicks. You could make a very solid and fair argument that these are the 6 best teams in the Eastern Conference. All 6 of these teams have had playoff experience, and quite a bit of it over the past couple of years. We're looking at the defending champions, the Eastern Conference runner-ups in the Indiana Pacers, the Sixers, the Knicks, the Heat, the Cavaliers. All of these teams are legitimate playoff teams that have cores that have made playoff runs before, and for the most part, they're all relatively healthy enough that we definitely will not be favored to win any of these games. So we definitely have a hard schedule for these first 6 games. And if for whatever reason we do happen to go like 1-5 or 0-6 against this schedule, I really don't think it's the end of the world, because directly after this, things do get a lot easier. So there's really no other way to say it other than the fact that these games are going to be tough. And of course, we would rather win as many of them as we possibly can versus lose them. But if we're ending up taking 2-point losses or 4-point losses to the Celtics and the Knicks, teams like that, it's really not a horrible sign, and we'll know a lot more about where this team stands after we get past these first 6 games and we start getting some teams on the schedule like the Hawks or the Nets, some of the teams that we're projected to be more competitive with. So moving on to the second thing I don't want you all to panic about, it is Cade and the possibility of him having a slow start. All throughout his career in the NBA, Cade has always been a little bit of a slow starter. Add that in with the fact that growth isn't exponential, and the fact that he's also not a top 10 NBA player as of yet. Cade Cunningham might have a bad game or two to start off the year. I know that there's a very small fraction, a vocal minority of Pistons fans who really don't like Cade, and every time that he has a bad game, they love to take it as an opportunity to spike the ball. But please do not evaluate Cade on a game-to-game basis. We have a player here who has real all-star potential, and he's coming into his 4th year, the first year where he's been fully healthy in quite a while. He's finally got some shooting around him. It's going to take a little bit of time to adjust to everything. Just please, if Cade has one singular bad game, don't overreact to it, because it's almost certainly going to happen. So moving on to the third one, and that is going to be the fact that Ron Holland might be a little bit more raw than we anticipate. What normally happens is at the very start of the year, we get these rookies that come in that are more experienced than the 19-year-old rookies like Ron Holland. For instance, last year, Jaime Jaquez. This year, Zach Edey, Dalton Knecht. There's going to be some older rookies that show up in the NBA that are 3 years older than Ron Holland that just look like they would have been way better picks in the short term, because it's probably true in the short term. Ron Holland is going to take a little bit more time to develop than some of these other players, especially the 4-year seniors that got drafted. So Ron Holland maybe has a DNP here and there, or potentially has a bad game. don't take that as an opportunity to pretend like, oh my goodness, we should have definitely drafted insert random 22-year-old rookie that is obviously way more prepared for the NBA than Ron is. When the Pistons drafted Ron Holland, they knew what they were up against. He's a young player with a high ceiling, and we definitely won't have a full idea of what his career will look like until we get multiple years down the road. Moving on to number 4, it's the fact that Ausar Thompson cannot play. Now, I've already seen some people just guessing, saying, I don't know if Ausar is ever going to play basketball again. All I'll say to that is just wait until there's some legitimate news. I have looked in every single corner of the internet and read every story, every article I could possibly find to try and get as much information regarding Ausar and his health as possible. It's just not out there. There is no one in this world besides the Pistons medical staff and people close enough to Ausar to know him personally that know exactly what's going on with him. So don't just assume the worst. It's probably not a great idea. If anything, assume you don't know what's going to happen or what's even going on right now, because I have put in hours of research to try and figure out, and I can't figure out myself. So unless you're connected to somebody personally who has given you more strict and direct answers on this situation, none of us know. So we'll just have to wait and see. Moving on to the last thing to be potentially wary about, it's JB Bickerstaff. Now, I have a lot of faith in JB Bickerstaff. I love everything that I've seen out of him, whether it be at press conferences or in the preseason with his rotations. I think that him as a coach is a huge step in the right direction compared to what we had last season and probably even the season before that. But new coaches do need a little bit of time to get acclimated, and the players need some time to get acclimated to their new coach. It might not happen overnight, and it might not happen in the first week. But JB has talked extensively about trying to forge an identity out of this team, and I think he even knows it's not going to happen straight away. It's going to take a little while for all the players to get more acclimated and used to his offensive schemes, his defensive schemes. It's going to take a little while for JB to kind of figure out his rotations, exactly how he wants to have them, especially if we are missing Ausar at the start of the year for a while, and then he has to work his way back in. He probably wants to see what he has with somebody like Ron Holland. So it's just going to take a couple weeks, if not maybe even a month, for JB to really get comfortable with this team and for this team to get comfortable with JB. Not very often does a new coach show up and rolls out a whole new scheme and the players just pick up on it like that and hit the ground running. It normally takes at least a couple games. So that's really it. The reason for this video is because I am as good at overreacting to the early NBA season as anybody. I think that we're all excited that the season is here, which makes it very easy to overreact to the first couple games. So I wanted to make this video as a reminder to myself to not overreact to 1 or 2 or 3 game sample sizes from the start of the year, because it is a long 82 game season and game number 1 is just as valuable as a random Tuesday night game against the Hawks in February. They all count as 1 win or 1 loss. Let me know what you guys think. We're almost there. We'll catch up soon.